The Xbox Activision deal is done, but what does that mean for you? How many franchises do they now own? What could we see in the future? There's a long list of games and pieces of property that are now underneath the Xbox banner, and I have a nice list put together by Game Informer that I'm going to run down for you of both what can be owned and used within the Activision Blizzard game franchise catalog and library, as well as King Mobile. Once I'm done going through the list, I'm going to go back through it and kind of give my thoughts on each one and say what might happen or might not. But just for the sake of being a useful video for you, I'll go through the list first, just kind of listing everything. You might be curious. I was curious. It was like, okay, there's a lot of stuff out there, right? Everybody knows Call of Duty, but beyond that, and, you know, the classics like World of Warcraft and, you know, Blizzard titles like Diablo, there's a lot of other games they could potentially throw on Game Pass or resurrect or do a remake or a remaster. So let's look at the list first, and then I'll maybe give some of my thoughts about all of the different things that they could do. So right here on Game Informer, they've got like a nice picture, you know, showing all the stuff that they own now, you know, all interwoven together with different pieces of property like Diablo and Warcraft. So let's just take a look here. Call of Duty, obviously, everybody knows that one's coming along, but Crash Bandicoot is one that, you know, many people might have forgotten about. Diablo, of course, Gabriel Knight, Geometry Wars, Guitar Hero. We've actually been hearing rumors that they want to do something with Guitar Hero or talking about bringing it back, which is, I'm curious what they'll do there. Gun, Hearthstone, Heroes of the Storm, Heavy Gear. Sorry, I need to scroll here. Heretic, Interstate 76, King's Quest. Well, there's an old one there. Laura Bow Mystery Series, The Lost Vikings, Overwatch, Phantasmagoria. That one takes me back. I remember my friend like warning me about that game. Like he really wanted to play it, and we ended up not playing it. He thought it was going to be too scary. Pitfall, Police Quest, Prototype, Quest for Glory, Singularity, Ski Resort Tycoon. That's probably the real reason they did this acquisition. Skylanders, Soldier of Fortune. This one, I'm going to talk about this one a little bit. I'm going to loop back. I want to give you the list now, but Soldier of Fortune, man, that's a classic. Space Quest, Spyro, StarCraft, SWAT, Tenchu, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, and associated titles. Now, I don't know how many of those are there. I mean, do they all fall under the same name, Tony Hawk, or are there other like skating titles and stuff? Because I didn't really play a lot of those. True Crime, Ultimate Soccer Manager, Warcraft, of course, World of Warcraft. These are different to a certain extent. And then Zork. So that's basically all of the, you know, the Blizzard game franchises, the Activision Blizzard game franchises that they could potentially do something with. Now, we should look at the King Mobile stuff just very quickly. I'm not going to have a lot to say about any of this, but this is the King game collection that they now own. This is going to be a huge generation of revenue, no doubt, because mobile games are crazy. Bubble Saga, Bubble Witch Saga, Hoop de Loop Saga, Candy Crush Saga. They put Saga at the end of every one of these. Are they kidding around? Is it really considered Candy Crush Saga? I'm going to stop saying Saga just for the sake of my own sanity. Pyramid Solitaire, Pet Rescue. I mean, adding Saga just really ups the severity here. Pet Rescue Saga. Papa Bear, Farm Heroes Saga, Pepper Panic, Bubble Witch 2, Diamond Digger, Candy Crush Soda Saga, Alpha Betty, Scrubby Dubby Saga, Paradise Bay, Blossom Blast, Candy Crush Jelly Saga. We got a lot of Candy Crush in here, you know? We got regular old Candy Crush, then there's Soda, then there's Jelly. We got more Farm Heroes Super Saga. That makes me think of Sega. Anyway, Shuffle Cats, Bubble Witch 3, Legend of Solgar, Diamond Diaries, Candy Crush Friends. There it is again, Pet Rescue Puzzle. And then the last three here, Knighthood, Epic RPG Nights, Crash Bandicoot, On the Run, and Rebel Riders. So that's it. That's everything that they could potentially do something with. Now, I want to scroll back up and just give some thoughts here because I think there's a lot of different things that could happen. So first and foremost, Call of Duty. I think Call of Duty could be utilized in a variety of ways. Now, I have an entire video about all the different ways that they might do a rollout, but I do think initially it seems almost unavoidable that they would do a rollout of all of the classic Call of Duties on Game Pass, get a lot of worth out of that. You can have a really, really great trickle. That's a great way of getting, people to get and stay on Game Pass. Now, as far as going back and doing anything with the old original titles, remasters or remakes, I don't think so. Because one of the trajectories that has worked quite well for them was the reboot of Modern Warfare, then Modern Warfare 2, and now we have Modern Warfare 3. I anticipate the next big push for Call of Duty to be Black Ops, and that will likely get them all the way to 2027, which we have it on good authority. They already have all the Call of Duties planned out till 2027, which makes sense because that means you would do the first Black Ops in 2024, 2025, 2026, and then 2027 is likely the next turn, right? They'll do 3 more years of Black Ops, and they'll have another turn in 2027. I don't know if they're ever going to go back to the World War era. Crash Bandicoot, I think something I'm going to continue to say as we go through this list is, some of the older titles like this that might be incredibly nostalgic for some of us. My attachment to Crash Bandicoot was the commercials where the guy in the costume was like, booyah grandma, tuck and roll grandma. Like, they were really funny commercials. But I don't know if Microsoft is going to see them as worth revisiting because they're really going to want to increase value and draw and demand for Game Pass. And I don't know if you do that with old, more nostalgic-driven titles getting a remake or a remaster. You have to think about the community and the consumer base at large. Microsoft's really going to try to target people who are either on PC or mobile, or somebody that just might play something from their television. And I don't know if Crash Bandicoot's gonna resonate with that audience. It resonates with people who are kind of already gamers, and it'd be really exciting for you, but it might not be exciting for other people. Now, Diablo, similarly to Call of Duty, I think we're gonna see a rollout of Diablo, the classics, and whether or not Diablo 4 ever gets things back where it needs to go kind of remains to be seen. So that's, as far as live service goes, I think they have a vested interest in getting Diablo 4 working, but it remains to be seen if they're going to be able to pull that off, because they do have Last Epoch and Path of Exile kind of nipping at their heels in that genre. Now, I am not familiar with Gabriel Knight. Geometry Wars, I'm vaguely familiar with. Again, I think games that are more, that are older, I just don't know if they're going to see a whole lot of worth in doing anything with them. Guitar Hero is an interesting one from where I sit because it would require, physical items to be shipped. Maybe they could do something like this and not necessarily do VR. Because the first thing I think of when I think of Guitar Hero is something like VR, because I think of games like Beat Saber getting really popular. So there is the possibility that a game like Guitar Hero could kind of have a comeback moment. And being that, Xbox would own them could be a nice advantage. Gun, I don't have much to say there. I don't know if they'll do anything with it. Hearthstone, they'll probably just let that thing, continue. If it is still making money and doing well. Say, Heroes of the Storm, again, this is one where I don't see them trying to bring it back or do anything with it. Heavy Gear, I'm not familiar with. Heretic, again, these are titles that I don't think they're going to necessarily see any worth in bringing them back. Interstate 76, King's Quest, Laura Bow series, Blow Mystery series. I don't know what any of these are. Lost Vikings. Do they want to do a remaster or a remake of old titles like this? Maybe. Overwatch is an interesting one just because it's kind of fallen into such a bad place with PR and the community. I'm not really sure what we're going to see from Microsoft with respect to titles that have gotten themselves into bad situations, like Diablo 4 and Overwatch. Are they going to insist on oversight? Are they going to just kind of let them keep doing their thing? Or are they going to demand results? Or hey, we're going to have to cut that property, or DOA it or something, or not DOA it. Sorry, EOL. We went to end of life stuff, to say, listen, this is not doing what it needs to do. You're not giving us the money that we want to see on return of investment. And that's always going to be a challenge with live service games, and in particular, keeping people around. Phantasmagoria, again, I don't see anything here. Pitfall, I think it would be actually wonderful for them to do Pitfall and sort of have it be their attempt at an Uncharted style game, sort of like Uncharted and Tomb Raider meets Indiana Jones. I know they have plans for an Indiana Jones game, so that might not leave room for a game like Pitfall. Or it would be really, really cool to do Pitfall and make it be like an amazing platformer, maybe even, a Metroidvania, because I mean, Ori and the Blind Forest is what I think of. But, again, I think the dilemma with Pitfall, amazingly enough, my dad has a Coleco, and he got it working again on a modern television, which is really hard. You have to buy an adapter. And the thing that I was struck by was we had the old cartridges, and there was Pitfall. And the Activision logo has not changed since then. I actually really respect that. I love when a company's logo just doesn't change. But I just don't know, again, if what they're targeting with this acquisition and Game Pass is a broader audience, is, maybe not a bunch of people who are currently gamers, or PC gamers in particular. You might get some of the PC gaming crowd in with nostalgic things like Pitfall, or if they did anything with like the original Diablo, that might be their way in with the PC audience. I think the difficulty you're always going to run into is leveraging these titles on Game Pass to get new customers when people on PC are really, really more focused on, as an ecosystem, as sort of a consumer base, hive mind. They like owning their games. They like having their games in Steam. So I think that's going to be one of the major barriers of really trying to target that audience in particular. Police Quest, I don't really have anything to say here. Prototype, I mean, that could be a good, stab at something that we don't see a lot of games like that for Xbox, something that feels more in the realm of like that third person action adventure game that Sony excels at, and suddenly having a game like that would be really good. Something I've always said was, one of the reasons I don't think we see a lot of other companies trying to do games like that is because you are competing against some very exceptional titles with Uncharted, with Horizon Zero Dawn and Forbidden West, with God of War. You are competing with titles that are, I think, a little bit daunting, but I don't think that's a reason to like not do it. I think Jedi Fallen Order and Jedi Survivor proved that you can make amazing titles. They don't have to be first party. That, this one obviously would probably be first party, but I think it'd be really, really cool to bring back Prototype and start to show, hey, we can have, really, really high quality, great third-person action adventure games. They're cinematic, they're cool, they're original. And Prototype wouldn't necessarily like get a bunch of support because of nostalgia. It would probably get support if it's just a good-looking game. And then Quest for Glory, nothing really to say about that one. Singularity, Ski Resort Tycoon, no. Skylanders, I don't pay attention to brands like this. I don't know if Skylanders is still really popular, right? It was kind of like a more mythical Pokemon action thing where I remember there was like little figurines. My nephews were like really, really into it. And I've not heard hide nor hair about it now. Like, I don't really talk about it. So, I don't know if that's because they just got older or Skylanders has just sort of been put out to pasture. But you could definitely bring it back and capture a younger audience. I think that would be really good. Now, Soldier of Fortune. Soldier of Fortune was so ahead of its time with shooting individual body parts and having them fly off. It actually was a really, really great shooter at the time. At the time, you had games like Call of Duty and Medal of Honor. But Soldier of Fortune tried to be more gritty and tried to be a little bit more hardcore, and went for like a level of realism that at the time, if you remember games like Max Payne doing like slow downs and jumping through doors and slow motion, there was more of this emphasis on the cinematic nature of the game. And, I don't know if they would want to do anything with Soldier of Fortune, because I think the major challenge right now is any game that comes out like that just ends up getting pitted against Call of Duty, and it doesn't do well. So if you wanted to bring back Soldier of Fortune, it would really, really need its own identity, and it would need to feel like a very, very fresh take on that kind of game. Space Quest, nothing to say there. Spyro, again, iconic, memorable, nostalgic, but is Microsoft going to feel like, yeah, we really need to do something with Spyro? Because we're trying to, in my mind, well, you know what? Some of these they might want to do something with sheerly because of they want some of the nostalgic gamers who are not currently on Xbox. A lot of the more long-standing, more nostalgic gamers, they could be on PlayStation, and you can start to get some of them to come over with some of these older titles. StarCraft, I don't know if there's a future for StarCraft. I just don't know if that style of game is in demand as much as it used to. I loved StarCraft 1 and StarCraft 2. I would play them very casually with my friends, get on a money map and just have fun beating on the computer. I never took it that serious beyond that. I just wasn't interested in playing against other people. You always, you'd have somebody Zerg rush or, something. And if you don't know the exact order of build and the exact meta and the exact math, you just don't stand a chance. It was just never a game I liked enough to dedicate that level of time to. It was more fun to play casually. SWAT, nothing to say there. Tenchu. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater. I wonder if we've kind of left the era where games like that can be popular. The whole idea of skateboarding and doing tricks and the grunginess and the music and the soundtracks, that sort of feels locked in time. And I'm not saying skateboarding's locked in time. I just think skateboarding games, what really inspired them. I remember my friend would have like these old he'd have these VHS tapes of guys doing crazy tricks, and then we were all watching, shows like Jackass, where, a lot of those guys, it felt very much inspired by the crazy tricks and stunts you'd see on skateboard. Well, now these guys are going to do like, goofball tricks and stunts. I just don't know if that era's around anymore, but it would be really, really cool to see, a Tony Hawk, Pro Skater or skater games like that, have their resurgence. I remember playing one of the best skater games ever on the original Nintendo was Skate or Die. That game was awesome. Jousting in the pool, so much fun. True crime, yeah, probably nothing there. Ultimate Soccer Manager. Warcraft, probably nothing with Warcraft, but World of Warcraft, I'm just going to say right now, nothing with Zork, but let's just kind of end maybe the video talking about World of Warcraft, and then these videos typically roll over into a members-only debrief, so if you want to discuss my content and sort of all the things that we're doing, consider hitting join, and then you can watch my extra content. Now, if you don't do memberships on YouTube, that's totally fine. Hit subscribe, hit the bell button. I do a live show and an upload every day, and you can, Monday through Friday, and you can consume that just as a subscriber. But the membership is a great way to support the channel and get into more content. So World of Warcraft, just to kind of end the video, a lot of people are theorizing what they're going to do with that, try to bring it back, try to resurrect World of Warcraft and put it into a better place. People are, pretty irritated with it, and I don't really play it, so I can't represent what has happened and what people think very well, but I know that people that like World of Warcraft, even, Asmongold was saying he thinks it could be huge if they could get a bunch of new people by throwing the subscription on Game Pass. Now, in my mind, they'd want to throw it on like the Ultimate, or maybe even have its own subscription tier, like a Game Pass WoW bundle, so you get like maybe a little bit more from them every month. Like, let's say they're already paying for Ultimate, for $5, let them upgrade and bundle in WoW with it, something like that, because then you're going to get people who need that to play WoW, and then they're also getting on Game Pass, and then you're keeping them on Game Pass. As far as a game like that succeeding on console, we know that games like that can succeed on console. We've seen that with Final Fantasy XIV. I've continued to say that I think New World could have a big resurgence if they continue to move towards more PvE, a lot more of a, sort of a relaxing style MMO that's just enjoyable, and New World's one of the prettiest MMOs out there. World of Warcraft could do the same. I know from what I've heard, they've done a lot, to try to bring in the casuals and to get people, into the game who aren't trying to play 8 hours every day. That's always going to be your challenge, bringing something like that to console, and then the other element is the tie-in to Game Pass. So I'd love to know what you think. Leave a comment below, or again, if you're a member, roll over into the discussion that follows this. And as always, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you in the next video.